Story 1. 2 years ago, my group of curious 17-year-old friends discovered an abandoned asylum in Downey, California. We decided to explore it on a Saturday night. With additional friends, we embarked on the drive to Downey, witnessing the neighborhoods growing shadier as we approached the asylum. After 30 minutes, we arrived in Downey and navigated through the city to find the asylum. The closer we got, the more unsettling the surroundings became. Finally, after another 15 minutes of driving, we reached our destination. Parking the car, we entered the building through a hole in the fence. At first, the experience seemed relatively harmless. With a group of 10 people, we thought, what's the worst that could happen? We wandered through the building, observing broken furniture and scattered patient files. The abandoned mental institution intrigued us, and we were simply having a good time exploring its eerie corridors. However, things took a turn for the worse. As we walked, our flashlight illuminated the hallway ahead. Suddenly, we noticed another beam of light coming from around the corner. Turning the corner, we encountered another group of 4 kids. They inquired if we had been to the slide. Perplexed, we answered negatively, unaware of what they were referring to. They suggested we follow them, but their vibes were unsettling, so we declined politely. Amidst their conversation, one of the kids approached me, brandishing a 6-inch Bowie knife. He presented it as a cool find, moving it closer to my face. Nervously, I acknowledged its uniqueness, stepping away and suggesting we explore the roof. To our surprise, they agreed and continued on their way. Once on the roof, a sense of unease engulfed me. It became apparent that we were trespassing and that this place held an ominous aura. Overwhelmed by my apprehension, I urged everyone to leave, and they all concurred. Knowing that no one was allowed in the asylum, especially at night, we strategized the best exit route to avoid the police stationed at the main gate. Suddenly, my friend spotted a fire escape ladder hanging from a higher portion of the roof. We determined it to be our best chance, positioning the small ladder for my friend Jonah to ascend first. Once Jonah reached the top, he turned pale. Confused, I whispered, "Jonah, did you not see this?" His response was bewildered, and he asked what I meant. As he turned his gaze forward, the gravity of the situation hit me hard. What we witnessed on the roof was our worst nightmare come to life. A group of hooded figures, numbering around 15, sat in a circle surrounding a burning cat and several dead animals. They spoke in tongues, emitting eerie, satanic sounds. Fear consumed us as we descended the ladder, catching the attention of the cult-like individuals. They conversed among themselves in an incomprehensible language before sprinting towards us. Abandoning the fire escape plan, I instructed everyone to forget about the police and focus on escaping. We raced through the building, pursued closely by the sinister cult. Miraculously, we managed to exit the building and sprinted across a field towards the main gate. The cop on duty noticed the commotion, activating his sirens and approaching us. Thankfully, he intercepted the pursuing cult members, diverting their attention away from us. We escaped to safety, reflecting on the terror we had just experienced. It was undeniably the most frightening encounter of our lives. What would we have done if they had captured one of our friends? Would we have mustered the courage to confront them? Thankfully, we didn't have to find out. As we caught our breaths outside the asylum, relief washed over us. The harrowing chase had come to an end thanks to the timely intervention of the police officer. Still trembling from the adrenaline coursing through our veins, we huddled together, processing the magnitude of the horror we had narrowly escaped. The questions lingered in our minds. Who were those hooded figures? What twisted rituals were they performing on the rooftop? The sinister aura they exuded sent chills down our spines. We couldn't shake off the feeling that we had stumbled upon something far more sinister than an abandoned asylum. Despite the cops' intervention, fear continued to gnaw at us. Would those cult-like individuals come looking for us? Would they seek retribution for our intrusion into their malevolent gathering? We realized that the threat might not be over, and we had to remain vigilant. We decided to keep the incident a secret, afraid of the potential consequences if the authorities got involved. Plus, who would believe our terrifying encounter with a cult on an abandoned rooftop? The truth would sound like a fabricated horror story. Months passed, and we attempted to resume our normal lives. But the memories haunted us. Nightmares plagued our sleep, the images of the hooded figures and their sacrificial acts etched into our minds. We struggled to regain a sense of security and innocence. However, signs of the encounter's impact began to manifest. One by one, our group members experienced strange occurrences. Shadows flickered at the corners of their vision. Whispers echoed through their ears when no one was around, and a constant feeling of being watched plagued their every move. Paranoia took hold, causing rifts among us. Trust waned as suspicion grew. It became apparent that our encounter with the cult had left a lasting mark on our psyches, shattering our youthful naivety. The once tight-knit group slowly unraveled under the weight of fear and uncertainty. Desperate for answers and seeking solace, we turned to research. Hours were spent scouring obscure books and online forums, searching for any trace of the cult or similar occurrences. Our findings led us down a dark path, delving into the realms of the occult and hidden secrets. The deeper we delved, the more we unearthed about the asylum's disturbing past. It had been a site of unspeakable horrors, where patients were subjected to inhumane experiments and atrocities. Rumors of occult practices and the involvement of a deranged cult emerged from the shadows. The pieces began to fit together. The abandoned asylum was more than just a decrepit building. It was a vessel for darkness, an unholy sanctuary where the line between this world and the beyond blurred. Our ill-fated exploration had disturbed the dormant evil that resided within those walls. Driven by a mix of curiosity, desperation, and a need for closure, we resolved to confront the cult and put an end to their sinister activities. Armed with newfound knowledge and a grim determination, we embarked on a dangerous quest to unveil the truth and free ourselves from the clutches of fear. It was a treacherous journey filled with unexpected twists and encounters that tested our resolve. We sought guidance from seasoned occult experts, risking our lives to infiltrate hidden covens and decipher cryptic symbols. Each step drew us deeper into a dark web of malevolence. Finally, our efforts bore fruit. We uncovered a hidden location, a secluded hideout where the cult congregated, performing their macabre rituals. With a mixture of fear and determination, we made our way towards their lair, ready to confront the darkness that had consumed our lives. The final showdown was as intense as it was surreal. Our hearts pounded in our chests as we confronted the hooded figures, challenging their twisted beliefs and demanding answers. The air crackled with tension as we stood face to face with the embodiment of evil. The cult members, caught off guard by our unexpected arrival, initially reacted with hostility. They lunged at us, their eyes filled with fanaticism and a fervor for protecting their secret rituals. But we fought back, fueled by a combination of fear and a desire to reclaim our lives. The battle was fierce, an all-out struggle between light and darkness. The echoes of our screams mixed with the chants of the cultists, creating an eerie symphony of chaos. Each swing, each strike, was infused with desperation and a determination to banish the horrors that had haunted us for so long. As the fight raged on, we realized that defeating the cult would not be easy. They possessed an otherworldly strength, their bodies seemingly fueled by the malevolent forces they worshipped. But we refused to relent. With every ounce of strength and courage, we pressed forward, pushing them back one by one. It was a grueling battle, a test of our physical and emotional limits. Yet, we persevered, fueled by the bonds we had formed as friends and the indomitable spirit that burned within each of us. Slowly, the tide turned in our favor. The cultists faltered, their resolve weakening as we chipped away at their ranks. Finally, the last of them fell, defeated and broken. The once haunting hideout now stood silent, its walls witnessing the defeat of darkness and the triumph of resilience. We stood amidst the fallen, catching our breath, taking in the magnitude of what we had accomplished. With the cult dismantled, a sense of relief washed over us. The weight that had burdened our souls for so long began to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of empowerment. We had faced our fears head-on, standing against the darkness that had threatened to consume us. But our journey was not yet complete. In the aftermath of the battle, we discovered records and documents that revealed a far-reaching network of cult activity. Realizing the need to expose their existence and prevent others from falling victim, we vowed to bring the truth to light. Together, we compiled our evidence, seeking out journalists, investigators, and authorities who would listen to our harrowing tale. The revelation sparked a widespread investigation, unearthing hidden cults and exposing the deep-rooted darkness that had plagued our lives. As the truth came to light, we found solace in knowing that our ordeal had not been in vain. Our courage had initiated a ripple effect, empowering others to confront their own fears and fight against the shadows that threatened their lives. The horror story that began in the abandoned asylum had transformed into a tale of resilience, friendship, and triumph over darkness. We had overcome our deepest fears, emerging stronger and wiser on the other side. Looking back, we understood that our journey had irrevocably changed us. It had taught us the value of courage, the strength in unity, and the importance of standing up against the forces that seek to oppress and destroy. Though scars remained, both seen and unseen, we knew that we were forever bound by the shared experience. And as we moved forward, we carried with us the knowledge that, even in the face of unimaginable horror, there is always hope, and together we can overcome anything. Story 2. My name is Michael, and this is the chilling tale of me, my friends Jacob and Jeremiah. It all began in the summer of 2019 when Jacob and I stumbled upon an abandoned house while driving down a dirt road one night. Exploring such houses had become our favorite pastime, and we were ecstatic at the discovery. Determined to investigate further, we decided to return during daylight to get a better look. Unfortunately, our attempts to find the house again proved futile, leaving us disappointed. We reluctantly agreed to search for another abandoned house. Fast forward to the summer of 2020, when I grew tired of being cooped up at home and decided to embark on a quest to find the elusive house we had missed out on. After navigating a maze of dirt roads for about an hour, I finally stumbled upon it. Excitement overwhelmed me, and I immediately texted Jacob to share the news. Later that day, Jacob and I reunited at the house. As we stepped inside, our faces lit up with anticipation. Despite being abandoned, the house had an eerie charm, with broken windows and tall grass surrounding the property. We carefully made our way through the back door, maneuvering through branches, and began exploring. To our surprise, the interior of the house was remarkably well preserved. It had 2 stories and a finished basement, but we focused our exploration on the first floor to avoid drawing attention. We encountered scattered broken glass, a few items strewn about, and a striking chandelier in the living room. Satisfied with our initial visit, we made plans to return later that night with additional friends for added excitement. Around 11:30 p.m., we picked up our friends and Jeremiah, eager to share the experience with them. As we entered the house once again, the atmosphere was filled with the reckless energy of teenage boys. We were loud, obnoxious, and gleefully spooking each other. Venturing upstairs, we continued our exploration, spending considerable time in the various rooms. As we prepared to leave, jokingly discussing who should lead the way down the stairs, a sudden crash erupted from the main floor, freezing us in our tracks. We exchanged shocked glances, trying to comprehend the source of the disturbance. Initially, we suspected Jeremiah might be behind the noise, as he had a mischievous streak. However, logic quickly dismissed that possibility since he was positioned behind me. With lingering trepidation, I cautiously descended the stairs to investigate. To our bewilderment, there was no one there and nothing appeared to have fallen. A chandelier still dangled undisturbed from the ceiling. Feeling unnerved, we hastily made our way towards the exit, determined to leave as swiftly as possible. As we reached the car, our hearts sank as a large grey SUV pulled up alongside us. Panic gripped us, but Jacob managed to roll down his window and call out to the occupants. To our dismay, both the driver's window and the passenger window rolled down simultaneously, revealing a shocking sight. 5 individuals, armed with baseball bats and other weapons, stared menacingly at us. Without hesitation, Jacob shifted the car into drive and accelerated away from the scene. As we sped down the dark road, the SUV pursued us relentlessly, dangerously close to our bumper. Jacob skillfully maneuvered onto a nearby highway, pushing our speed to almost 100 miles per hour. After a tense few minutes, the pursuing vehicle abruptly turned around and vanished into the distance. We pulled over, attempting to catch our breath and make sense of the harrowing encounter. Silence enveloped us as we sat in the car, grappling with the reality of what had just occurred. After a few minutes, we decided to return to the house to see if the mysterious car was still lurking in the vicinity. With trepidation, we parked across from the house, scanning the surroundings for any sign of the menacing SUV. To our relief, it was nowhere to be seen. As we huddled in the car, the adrenaline slowly subsiding, we began discussing the events that unfolded. Jeremiah's phone suddenly rang, shattering the silence. It was his girlfriend, and the news she shared sent shivers down our spines. She asked if we had visited the abandoned house where a tragic incident had occurred. Wide-eyed, Jacob and I exchanged a glance, our minds flooded with dread. Jeremiah's girlfriend revealed that the house had been notorious as a hotspot for teenage parties, which had caught the attention of the property owner. Disturbingly, he had installed hidden cameras within the premises. One fateful night, upon discovering a party taking place, the owner arrived and fatally shot one of the attendees. The revelation left us speechless, realizing the danger we had unwittingly stumbled upon. Jeremiah's girlfriend, having been to the house before, had noticed his location and felt compelled to share the ominous history. With the call ending, an eerie silence filled the car. The weight of our near miss and the grim fate of the previous visitor hung heavily in the air. Jacob took on the responsibility of safely driving each of us back home, dropping us off one by one. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind raced with thoughts and unanswered questions. What had caused the unsettling noise in the house? Who were the menacing figures in the SUV? And why did they pursue us? It was a night filled with unexplainable occurrences that left an indelible mark on our lives. In the 2 years that followed, Jacob and I often found ourselves reminiscing about that haunting night. We contemplated the unexplained phenomena and the narrow escape we had experienced. The incident had forever altered our perception of abandoned houses and the potential dangers that lurked within. The unresolved mystery of the noise on the stairs plagued my thoughts. Was it a mere coincidence, a product of an old house settling, or something more sinister? A lack of answers left a lingering sense of unease, discouraging any further exploration of abandoned homes. The fear instilled in us that night acted as a deterrent, ensuring we would never embark on such ventures again. Time passed, and life moved on, but the memories of that chilling encounter remained etched in our minds. It served as a constant reminder of the fragility of our existence and the unpredictable nature of the world around us. As for me, I made a conscious decision to leave behind the world of abandoned houses, content to let those mysterious dwellings remain untouched by my curiosity. The chilling events of that night had taught me the value of safety, the importance of trusting one's instincts, and the stark reality that some secrets are better left undisturbed. To this day, Jacob and I occasionally reflect on that spine-chilling experience, grateful that we emerged unscathed. We had narrowly escaped a fate that could have been far worse, leaving us with a newfound appreciation for the fragile line between curiosity and danger. Story 3. I'm currently 17 years old, still living with my parents. Next door, there's an abandoned house that has been empty for as long as we've lived in this neighborhood. It's been nearly 2 years since we moved here. This part of town is a bit rough and abandoned homes are quite common. I never really liked the idea of living next to an abandoned house. It had an eerie vibe, but honestly, I didn't care that much and rarely thought about it. However, there were a few occasions when I could have sworn I heard something coming from that house. I speculated that maybe squatters had taken shelter there, but I decided to mind my own business. You know the saying, curiosity killed the cat. Well, I figured as long as they weren't causing any harm, it was best to stay away from the situation entirely. Then, one hot summer night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, desperately trying to find some shut-eye. Suddenly, piercing screams echoed from the abandoned house. It lasted only a few seconds, but it sent me into a panic. Without thinking straight, I grabbed the switchblade my father had given me as a birthday present and quietly snuck out of my window. I made my way over to the house, jumping fences and maneuvering through bushes, determined not to be heard or seen. As I approached the back porch, my heart pounded in my chest, almost urging me to turn back. But I didn't. Looking back, I can't fathom what I was thinking or blame anyone for thinking I was foolish. With trepidation, I crept inside, finding the sliding glass door surprisingly unlocked. The darkness enveloped the interior, and I relied on the flashlight of my iPhone to guide me. It was a bad move on my part because the sudden illumination startled someone nearby. I hastily turned off the flashlight, pressed myself against the living room wall, waiting for the person to pass. I'm almost certain he noticed my presence due to the light. As he turned the corner, I was met with a towering figure much larger than myself. He swiftly punched me in the face, gripping my arm and shirt, dragging me forcefully. Instinctively, I fought back, desperately trying to break free. Realizing his intention to take me to the basement, I mustered all my strength, kicked him in the groin, and pushed him down the stairs. I fled from the house, running as fast as I could, back to the safety of my home. Climbing back in through my window, I locked it hastily, hoping no one had witnessed my escape. I rushed to secure the front and back doors, and then I called my mother. Panicked, she urged me to contact the police immediately. I hung up and dialed 911, recounting the harrowing events and pleading for an officer to be dispatched urgently. While waiting for the police to arrive, I was instructed to keep an eye on the abandoned house. Peering out of our living room window, I witnessed the most chilling sight of my entire 17 years of existence. A man was staring directly at me from the window of the house. Though it was difficult to discern his features, I suspected it was the same man I had pushed down the stairs. We locked eyes for what felt like an eternity before he abruptly closed the blinds, vanishing from sight. Terrified, I retreated to my room, anxiously awaiting the arrival of the police. I hoped they would catch him, but by the time they arrived, he had already disappeared. I wasn't surprised, but the fear of his potential return for revenge overwhelmed me. The police searched the house but found no one and no signs of suspicious activity. This only added to the creepiness of the situation. What on earth could be going on in that house? Not just at night, but all those other nights when I heard strange noises emanating from within its walls. It's a mystery that I doubt I will ever unravel. The uncertainty and fear lingered, casting a shadow over my daily life. I couldn't shake the feeling that something malevolent resided within that abandoned house. Something that could pose a threat not only to me but to the entire neighborhood. I couldn't help but wonder if I had stumbled upon something sinister, something far beyond the realm of my understanding. Sleep became elusive, haunted by nightmares that merged with my waking thoughts. Each creak of the floorboards in my own home sent shivers down my spine, and the slightest whisper of the wind made me jump. It was as if the entire world had become a terrifying playground, and I was just a pawn in a macabre game. News spread quickly throughout the neighborhood about the incident at the abandoned house. Whispers filled the streets, and the once vibrant community now seemed shrouded in a collective fear. Doors were locked tighter, curtains drawn, and children were warned to stay away from the dilapidated structure that now stood as a looming specter. Yet, despite the unease and the cautionary tales circulating, a lingering curiosity gnawed at me. I couldn't let go of the mystery that lay within those walls. I yearned for answers, no matter how terrifying they might be. In the depths of my soul, I knew I had to confront the darkness head-on, to uncover the truth that lay concealed. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The abandoned house became a symbol of both dread and fascination. And then, on a moonlit night when the stars shimmered like beacons, I made a decision that would forever alter the course of my life. Equipped with a determination that surpassed my fear, I rallied a group of brave friends from the neighborhood. Together, we formed a pact to investigate the mysteries of the abandoned house. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a resolve that burned like fire, we ventured into the unknown. As we approached the house, its eerie presence seemed to grow more palpable. The air turned thick with anticipation, and the silence became deafening. Each step we took echoed through the hollow spaces, as if the house itself was alive, reacting to our intrusion. We explored every room, cautiously peering into the darkness. The walls whispered secrets, and the floorboards groaned beneath our weight. Every flicker of a shadow made our hearts race, yet we pressed on, unwilling to succumb to the fear that threatened to engulf us. And then we discovered it, a hidden door concealed behind a bookshelf. It beckoned to us, revealing a passage that led down into the bowels of the house. Without hesitation, we descended into the depths, our hearts pounding in unison. The basement revealed a scene that defied all logic. symbols etched into the walls, candles casting dancing shadows, and a palpable sense of malevolence that clung to the air. It was a dark sanctuary, a place where unspeakable rituals had unfolded. Suddenly, a presence emerged from the shadows, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. We stood frozen, unable to comprehend the horrors that stood before us. The truth was far more terrifying than we had ever imagined. Evil had taken root within these walls, a force that thrived on fear and suffering, feeding on the souls of the unsuspecting. It was a malevolent entity awakened by our intrusion, and now it hungered for our very lives. In a frantic scramble, we fought to escape the clutches of the dark entity. The basement became a battleground of survival, our collective screams echoing through the house. Desperation fueled our actions as we dodged its sinister attacks, desperately searching for an escape route. As we made our way back upstairs, the house seemed to come alive, its walls shifting and contorting like a living nightmare. The once familiar layout became a labyrinth, trapping us in its clutches. Panic threatened to consume us, but we refused to surrender to the malevolence that lurked within. Through sheer determination and a stroke of luck, we stumbled upon a hidden passage that led to an attic. With adrenaline coursing through our veins, we ascended the creaky staircase, hoping to find a way out of this hellish nightmare. The attic was a forgotten realm of forgotten memories. Dust-covered furniture and decaying trinkets lined the space, hinting at a bygone era. But there was no time for reflection, our lives hung in the balance. In the corner of the attic, we discovered a worn-out diary, its pages filled with cryptic entries and dark revelations. It spoke of an ancient curse that befell the house, a curse that consumed those who dared to uncover its secrets. The diary offered a glimmer of hope, a ritual that could banish the malevolent force and restore peace to the neighborhood. Armed with newfound knowledge, we embarked on a treacherous journey, collecting the necessary artifacts and performing the ritual with trembling hands. Each step was fraught with danger, as the entity fought back with all its might, desperate to maintain its grip on the world. As the final incantation resonated through the house, a surge of energy filled the air. The very foundations of the house trembled, and a blinding light erupted, engulfing everything in its path. We shielded our eyes, unsure of what awaited us on the other side. When the brilliance subsided, we found ourselves standing outside the abandoned house, the night sky above filled with stars that twinkled with a renewed sense of tranquility. The curse had been broken, the malevolent entity vanquished. Word of our triumph spread throughout the neighborhood, and a newfound sense of unity emerged. The once dreaded house, now cleansed of its darkness, became a symbol of resilience and the triumph of good over evil. Years have passed since that fateful night, and the memory of our harrowing encounter has faded. The abandoned house, no longer abandoned, has found new owners who know nothing of its dark past. Yet, a small part of me wonders if the shadows truly vanished or if they merely lie dormant, waiting for the unsuspecting to awaken them once again. But for now, life in the neighborhood has returned to normalcy. Children play freely in the streets, laughter fills the air, and the house stands as a reminder of the strength that lies within a community united against the forces of darkness. And though the horrors we face still haunt our dreams, we find solace in the knowledge that we stood together and prevailed in the face of unspeakable terror. And so, the tale of the abandoned house serves as a cautionary reminder, a reminder that even in the darkest corners, courage and unity can conquer the deepest of fears. Story 1. The first time I ever went to Las Vegas, it was not just a passing through. I had embarked on a cross-country road trip, and since Vegas wasn't too far away from my starting point, I decided to spend the first night there to see what all the hype was about. However, being only 20 years old, I soon realized that being under 21 limited my options. The nice casino hotels required guests to be 21 or older, which meant I had to settle for less desirable accommodations. It was frustrating, but I didn't let it dampen my spirits. I was traveling with my girlfriend at the time, and together we explored the city during the day, trying to find ways to entertain ourselves. The evening came, and we strolled up and down the famous Las Vegas Strip, taking in the sights without having to show ID. It was an enjoyable distraction from the impromptu flight we had to take across the country due to extenuating circumstances that were irrelevant to our Vegas adventure. But little did we know that the real underbelly of Las Vegas was about to reveal itself when we decided to turn in for the night. The only place I could find near the strip that allowed me to book a room was a sketchy motel, complete with a sex shop and a strip club across the street. Just walking from my car to the motel door was a frightening experience. To add to the unease, the person staying in the room above us stared at us while smoking a cigarette on the breezeway. The door to our room showed signs of previous break-ins, so as soon as we entered, we barricaded it with a rug and a chair. We were on high alert, but exhaustion eventually overtook us, and we settled into bed to watch some TV. However, about an hour later, things took a disturbing turn. The person in the room above us became extremely loud, stomping around, talking loudly on the phone, and making a ruckus with the chairs. It seemed like they were purposefully creating as much noise as possible. At one point, we heard the door open, and the person began conversing with someone on the breezeway. The discussion quickly escalated into a heated dispute, turning into a shouting match. Moments later, the door slammed shut, followed by a woman screaming. The screams were more anger-filled than indicative of someone in peril, so I hesitated to call the police. It appeared that the situation was de-escalating into a discussion once again, and I preferred to mind my own business. However, we couldn't help but listen as the two individuals continued their heated exchange for several minutes. During their argument, objects were thrown across the room, producing alarming sounds upon impact. The situation was becoming increasingly concerning, and I felt it was necessary to contact the motel's front office, even though I doubted anyone would be available at that late hour. Unfortunately, before I could even find the number, the situation upstairs escalated further. There was a tremendous crash, followed by the sound of bodies hitting the floor. The level of detail in the noises was astonishing, as if we could visualize each violent interaction taking place. They were both on the floor, struggling to overpower each other. One person grunted and yelled at the other to shut up, while the woman screamed in agony. The thuds of them physically attacking each other were audible. I abandoned the idea of calling the office and dialed 911 immediately. I reported the active situation to the police, and when I provided the address, they seemed to already be aware of what was happening. They scolded me for not calling sooner, and I couldn't help but feel they were right. Within minutes, several police cars swarmed the parking lot in front of my room, their sirens blaring and lights flashing. Fearing a potential shootout, my girlfriend and I sought refuge in the bathroom at the back of our motel room. Upstairs, the aggressor must have noticed the commotion outside and attempted to flee. We heard footsteps hurriedly retreating, followed by a cacophony of screams and shouts from the police. Then, suddenly, silence engulfed the motel. After a while, we heard the distant wails of ambulance sirens. Thankfully, there were no gunshots fired, but the events that unfolded were still shrouded in mystery. When the police came knocking on my door to gather my statement, I couldn't resist asking them what had happened. To my shock, they revealed that the man occupying the room above us had ordered the services of a prostitute but found himself unable to pay. Instead of settling the matter peacefully, he resorted to attempting to rape the woman. The extent of the assault remained unknown, and honestly, I didn't want to know. Regret flooded my mind as I realized I should have called the authorities sooner. However, had I done so, he might have managed to evade accountability. As it turned out, when he tried to escape, he was met with a taser's electric shock while descending the stairs on the far side of the breezeway. The intense muscle contractions caused him to lose control, resulting in a fall down a dozen or so steps. His descent culminated in a sickening crack as his skull met the unforgiving pavement. Considering the man's previous actions and overall character, I couldn't help but feel that he received a measure of justice even before the events of that fateful night. The police shared some details about his past, solidifying my belief that he deserved the grisly fate he met. In the aftermath, we couldn't shake off the horror of what we had witnessed. It was a stark reminder of the dark underbelly that exists amidst the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas. The city's reputation for hedonism and excess seemed to take on a more sinister aura. Needless to say, our stay in Las Vegas was tainted by this terrifying encounter. We decided to cut our visit short, opting to continue our road trip and distance ourselves from the haunting memories that lingered within those motel room walls. From that moment onward, I carried a sense of caution and skepticism with me, understanding that appearances can be deceiving, even in the most renowned tourist destinations. Las Vegas became a cautionary tale etched in my memory, a reminder to be vigilant and prioritize safety no matter where I found myself. As the miles rolled by on our journey, we left Las Vegas behind, but the echoes of that night stayed with us. It was a chilling experience that taught us to be mindful of our surroundings and to appreciate the value of personal safety, even in seemingly innocuous situations. So, to anyone who ventures to Las Vegas or any other unfamiliar city, I offer this cautionary tale. Look beyond the glittering facade, be aware of your surroundings, and trust your instincts. In the shadows of the dazzling lights, a darker reality may lurk, waiting to reveal itself to the unsuspecting traveler. Story 2. I used to believe that big, well-known hotel buildings were safer than local one-star motels. However, a terrifying experience made me realize that danger can lurk anywhere. It happened during a trip for a family reunion in a remote location. While many family members were staying with the host, I opted for my own space in a small development at the intersection of two major roads. This development only had a diner, a gas station, and a disproportionately large hotel chain. The hotel was fully booked with other family members who had the same idea. On the morning of the first day, I arrived before dawn, checked into my room, and noticed a peculiar man in the lobby. His eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a knot in my stomach. I tried to avoid his gaze, but I could sense him watching me. After settling into my room, I focused on preparing for the day ahead. Unfortunately, I completely forgot about the man as the events of the day consumed my attention. Leaving the hotel early in the morning and returning late at night, I was startled when I stepped back into the lobby. The creepy man was still sitting in the exact same spot, facing the entrance, as if he had been observing everyone all day long. He grinned disturbingly when he saw me and began to rise from his chair. I hurriedly made my way to the elevator, hoping to ignore him, but he caught up while I waited for it. The stench emanating from him was overwhelming, a clear sign of his poor hygiene. Holding my breath, I entered the elevator, but he didn't press the button for his floor. Feeling cornered, he attempted small talk, which I kept brief. I mentioned that my family was staying in the hotel as a precautionary measure, but he remained indifferent. As the doors opened, I quickly pressed the floor above mine to mislead him. Power walking to the nearest stairwell, I descended a level and sneaked into my room. Thankfully, he couldn't keep up, and I believed I had escaped his presence. However, I decided to step out of my room to grab a bucket of ice for my warmed-up sparkling grape juice. Initially, the hallway seemed empty, and I proceeded cautiously. I struggled with the ice machine but eventually managed to fill a bucket. To my horror, when I turned around, the creepy man was right behind me. I was paralyzed with shock as he grinned victoriously and approached me, uttering disturbing words. Overwhelmed by fear and disgust, I threw the entire bucket of ice in his face and sprinted down the hallway, desperate to reach the safety of my room. Frantically locking the door, I could hear his heavy footsteps behind me. Thankfully, his lack of physical fitness worked to my advantage, allowing me to create distance. I could see his shadow under the door, but as soon as the hallway light disappeared, I knew he was watching, waiting for an opportunity. Suppressing the urge to confront him, I called the front desk to inform them of the situation. A few minutes later, the nighttime desk employee arrived and escorted him back to his own room. Sleep eluded me that night due to the lingering fear. For the remaining nights of the reunion, I checked out early and decided to stay with my family instead, determined to avoid any further encounters with that old creep who had been stalking me. The incident at the hotel left me shaken, and the fear I experienced lingered in the back of my mind. Despite my decision to stay with my family for the remainder of the reunion, the memory of that encounter haunted me. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, even in the company of loved ones. As the reunion progressed, I couldn't help but notice how certain family members seemed on edge as well. It turned out that a few of them had encountered the same creepy man in the hotel. Sharing our experiences brought a sense of solidarity, but it also deepened our concern. Who was this man and why was he targeting us? Together, we decided to report the incidents to the local authorities. They assured us that they would look into the matter and increase security measures at the hotel. While it provided some reassurance, the unsettling feeling remained. It was hard to relax and enjoy the reunion when the shadow of fear loomed over us. Despite the heightened security, the man seemed to evade capture. He became an elusive figure, always appearing when least expected and disappearing without a trace. The uncertainty of his presence made us question our own safety. We started taking extra precautions, walking in groups, and keeping a vigilant eye out for any suspicious activity. One evening, as the reunion was coming to an end, we gathered for a final dinner at a local restaurant. It was meant to be a joyful occasion, a chance to bid farewell to our extended family and relish the memories created. However, the underlying tension remained, casting a pall over the evening. As we sat at the long table, sharing stories and laughter, a sudden hush fell over the room. We turned our heads to see the man standing at the entrance. His eyes locked onto ours. Panic swept through the group as we scrambled to find a way to protect ourselves. It was as if he had orchestrated this final act of terror, choosing to reveal himself when we were at our most vulnerable. Without wasting a moment, we called the authorities, urging them to come immediately. The restaurant staff sprang into action, ensuring the doors were locked and providing assistance to our distressed family members. We huddled together, awaiting the arrival of help, praying for a swift resolution to this nightmare. Minutes felt like hours as we anxiously waited. The man stood motionless, his gaze fixed on us. It was a standoff between fear and resilience, and we refused to let fear win. With each passing moment, our determination grew stronger, and we found solace in the unity forged through this ordeal. Finally, the sound of sirens pierced the air as the police arrived. They swiftly apprehended the man, who put up minimal resistance. The relief that washed over us was immeasurable. Although the trauma remained, we took comfort in the fact that he would no longer pose a threat to us or anyone else. In the aftermath of the incident, our family vowed to stay connected and support one another. We realized the importance of vigilance and looking out for each other's safety. The horror we experienced brought us closer, reinforcing the bonds that held us together. As time passed, the memory of that fateful reunion began to fade, replaced by the resilience and strength we discovered within ourselves. We refused to let it define us, choosing instead to focus on the love and support that surrounded us. While the scars from that encounter may never fully heal, we emerged from the darkness with a renewed appreciation for the fragility of life and the power of unity. The horror story that unfolded in that hotel served as a reminder that safety is never guaranteed, but our resilience and determination can help us overcome even the darkest of moments. Story 3. I embarked on a solo journey through the breathtaking landscapes of the Scottish Highlands, driving a rental car from London all the way to the northernmost town of Melak. It was a childhood dream to explore these lands independently on my own terms. This adventure marked the beginning of an extensive backpacking trip across Europe, but little did I know that it would come to a screeching halt on the British Isles. By the first evening on the road, I had already made significant progress into the Highlands. Being mindful of sightseeing, I decided not to continue driving in the dark. As the sun started its descent, I chanced upon a quaint inn on the side of the road. The inns in this region were unlike your typical American hotels, exuding a cozy and welcoming ambience. Upon entering, I noticed that the inn I chose blended seamlessly with its surroundings, perfectly embodying the charm of Scotland. Instead of a typical continental breakfast, they boasted a ground floor pub where homemade food and house-brewed drinks were served throughout the day. I arrived just in time for a delightful dinner. Since I was traveling alone, I took a seat at the bar, striking up a conversation with some friendly locals who immediately recognized me as a tourist. They kindly recommended must-see places along my journey and shared their favorite dishes and drinks. The innkeeper, a warm middle-aged woman, joined in the conversation and eventually assisted me in securing a room for the night. The atmosphere was relaxed and laid back, ideal for weary travelers. The Scots took pride in their unique brand of hospitality, creating an environment where strangers felt like old friends. After relishing a hearty beef stew and a pint of beer, the other guests retired to their rooms, leaving me alone with the innkeeper and the cook, who was busy tidying up the kitchen. Given the late summer sunset, it was common for locals to retire early. But as a visitor, I struggled to adjust to the extended daylight hours. This resulted in restlessness despite the comforting food. I shared my predicament with the innkeeper, who offered a solution in the form of a few drinks. Intrigued, I agreed, and she presented a bottle of Scottish liquor I had never encountered before. Surprised by the departure from beer, I didn't want to offend her by declining. She provided me with a tall glass of water to chase down the shots, though curiously, she didn't have one for herself. I felt a tinge of embarrassment, but over the next hour, I consumed 3 or 4 shots of the mysterious liquor, guzzling water alongside. As darkness finally enveloped the surroundings, I informed the innkeeper that I was ready to retire for the night. However, when I stood up, a wave of wrongness washed over me. Not only was I far drunker than intended, but I also felt an overwhelming sense of unease. Struggling to articulate my thoughts, my words devolved into gibberish. I looked at the innkeeper, desperately trying to convey my distress, but to no avail. The cook, who had finished his tasks, stood beside her, his imposing figure casting an ominous shadow. I recall one of them suggesting that I needed assistance in reaching my room, and with unsteady steps, I started walking away. My instinct was to head for the exit and find my car, but the cook intercepted me, effectively blocking my path. I was forced to turn around, and together, the innkeeper and the cook guided my belligerent self toward the center of the building, where a staircase awaited. One path led to the second floor, housing all the rooms, while the other descended into the cellar. Pausing briefly, my clouded mind registered the impossibility of ascending those stairs in my current state. The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning, but before I could react, a sharp blow landed on my back, propelling me down the stairs with brute force. The impact against the cold, hard surface of the cellar floor rendered me unconscious, plunging me into a world of darkness and oblivion. Hours passed, shrouded in unconsciousness, until the light of morning finally pierced through the fog of my mind. I awoke, disoriented and disheveled, finding myself sprawled in the back seat of my car. Panic engulfed me as I noticed the throbbing pain in my head and the intense, shooting ache in my abdomen. Instinctively, I glanced down, and dread consumed me as I discovered a crudely sutured wound on my left side. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. I had been mercilessly harvested for one of my kidneys. The shock and horror washed over me, leaving me in a state of disbelief. My mind raced, desperate for a way to bring the perpetrators to justice. But the more I contemplated my predicament, the more I realized the futility of my situation. The culprits had meticulously orchestrated their heinous act, capitalizing on my vulnerability and leaving me helpless. My memories of that fateful night were fragmented, distorted by the concoction of excessive alcohol, a concussion from the fall, and the sedative-laced glass of water I had consumed after dinner. It became clear that the sinister individuals had meticulously manipulated the course of events, exploiting my weakened state to carry out their nefarious scheme. They had ample time to extract my kidney and transport my unconscious body far from the inn, erasing any trace of their dark operation. To compound my misfortune, I had been robbed of all my belongings, including my wallet and cell phone. Delirium and desperation consumed me as I grappled with the harsh reality of my situation. With no other recourse, I mustered the strength to flag down a passing motorist, pleading for their assistance in contacting the authorities. Providing them with whatever fragmented information I could recall, I beseeched them to take me to the nearest police station. At the station, I recounted my harrowing ordeal, offering every detail I could recollect, no matter how hazy or uncertain. However, my inability to provide concrete names or faces hindered the investigation, rendering my chances of justice elusive. The criminals responsible for this abhorrent organ harvesting operation seemed to vanish into thin air, evading capture and perpetuating their malevolent deeds. Filled with a profound sense of betrayal and helplessness, I embarked on a long and arduous journey back home 2 months earlier than anticipated. The aftermath of this horrific encounter haunted my every waking moment, leaving me scarred both physically and emotionally. The darkness that had infiltrated my Scottish adventure became a perpetual shadow, forever etched in my memory. To this day, the identity of those responsible remains a mystery. The black market organ trade continues to thrive in the shadows, preying on unsuspecting victims and eluding justice. My story stands as a grim reminder of the atrocities that can unfold in the most unexpected corners of the world, serving as a cautionary tale for those who dare to venture into the unknown. May my ordeal shed light on the urgent need to eradicate this vile industry and protect the innocent from its insidious grasp. Story 1. Once upon a time, amidst the dark underbelly of Craigslist, I found myself entangled in a sinister web of events that shook me to my core. It all began when my life had hit rock bottom. Thanks to my deranged ex-girlfriend who had not only stolen my belongings but also shattered my dreams of a future together. Left with nothing but my trusty truck and the shelter of my friend's humble abode, I sought solace in the comfort of familiar faces. Seeking respite from my shattered heart, I sought refuge at the local bar before finding temporary sanctuary at my friend's place. However, his meager living conditions offered no respite, and I ended up collapsing on the floor, devoid of a proper resting place. As the morning light pierced through my weary eyelids, my friend stirred me awake, offering his hospitality as long as I found an alternative to the cold, hard floor. Ever the opportunist, my friend struck a deal. I could stay with him, provided I assisted him in moving the couch into the house using my truck. Desperate for a semblance of comfort, I readily agreed, and together we embarked on a journey to a stranger's house in search of a second-hand couch. Although my instincts warned me against the perils of Craigslist, my desperation outweighed my concerns. As we arrived at the stranger's abode, an unsettling feeling washed over me, the place reeking of disorder and decay. Nonetheless, my friend reassured me that the couch was practically brand new, as indicated in the listing. Skepticism lingered until my eyes beheld the couch, confirming my friend's claims. It may have retained a lingering scent of factory chemicals, but it appeared to be in decent condition. The seller, however, embodied the quintessential Craigslist nightmare. A twitchy, greasy man with a set of repulsive teeth and a pungent odor, he exuded an air of malevolence. Yet, that wasn't the worst of it. Amidst his strange ramblings, he uttered a cryptic remark, insinuating that he had desired female customers instead. Clearly, his intentions were dubious, driven solely by his desperation for a quick fix and a disregard for our safety. Brushing off the creep's unsettling behavior, my friend and I focused on the task at hand. We maneuvered the couch into the back of my truck and hastily retreated from the disturbing presence of the seller. Throughout the ride back, we cracked jokes, attempting to alleviate the lingering unease that clung to our thoughts, until we finally arrived home and triumphantly placed the couch in its designated spot. Following another night of drowning my sorrows in a sea of whiskey, I succumbed to the exhaustion, collapsing onto my newfound bed. Inebriated nights often lulled me into deep slumber, but this night proved to be an exception. At approximately 4 in the morning, my eyes abruptly opened, and no matter how hard I tried, sleep eluded me. A throbbing headache demanded my attention, driving me to the kitchen in search of water. Amidst the stillness of the house, I detected a faint sound, initially mistaking it for mere house creaks. The wind outside intensified, rustling leaves in a haunting symphony. Yet there was something more, a noise that beckoned me to investigate. Driven by an innate curiosity, I succumbed to its call, despite my reservations. My friend's trash can was situated behind the front fence gate, adjacent to the living room's outer wall. Eager to identify the source of the commotion, I peered through one of the windows, hoping to catch a glimpse of the creature responsible. To my shock and horror, it was the drunken seller from the Craigslist encounter. He crouched outside, his face twisted into a sinister smile as he stared intently at the couch we had purchased. Enjoying the couch, he taunted, his voice muffled through the glass. Instantly, rage coursed through my veins, and I pounded my fist against the window, unleashing a torrent of anger. "Get out of here, you son of a..." I shouted, my words laced with fury. The man recoiled, fear flashing in his eyes, and he swiftly vanished into the night. Startled, my housemates emerged from their rooms, their sleepy expressions quickly replaced with concern. They inquired about the commotion, but upon learning the cause, they simply shrugged it off and retreated back to their slumber. Meanwhile, I remained on high alert, unable to shake the unsettling feeling that the man might return. Regret consumed me as I berated myself for not recognizing the danger earlier. It dawned on me that we had been unknowingly followed home, and we had narrowly escaped a far more sinister fate while we were out at the bar. Determined to protect ourselves, I enlisted the help of my roommate to transport the ill-fated couch back to the curb. I vowed to replace it with a new one from a reputable store, ensuring that the remnants of that unsettling encounter were banished from our lives. However, as fate would have it, my efforts to sever ties with the couch proved futile. Barely 30 minutes after disposing of it, I chanced upon a disheartening sight. Through the window, I glimpsed the repugnant figures of the seller and his unsavory companion loading the very same couch onto a beat-up old truck. My anger swelled, realizing that their initial plan had been to rob us from the start. Their failed attempt had led them to reclaim their bait, leaving us vulnerable to their twisted intentions. Bitterness washed over me as I ruminated on the possibilities. What if the next buyer turned out to be the girls that the deranged seller had desired? A thought sent a shiver down my spine, for I knew firsthand the danger they would face. Determined to prevent further harm, I resolved to expose the truth behind the seller's sinister actions. I reported the incident to the authorities, providing them with all the information I had gathered from our encounter. It was my hope that they would investigate, bringing justice to those who sought to harm innocent victims through deceitful transactions. In the following weeks, news emerged of a series of arrests linked to the Craigslist seller. It turned out that he was part of a larger criminal network, preying on unsuspecting individuals who sought bargains through the online marketplace. The revelation brought a sense of relief but also served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows of the virtual world. As for my friend and me, we remained vigilant, wary of the potential risks associated with online transactions. We learned valuable lessons about trust and the importance of prioritizing our safety over convenience. Craigslist would forever be tainted in our minds, a cautionary tale of the darkness that can manifest behind the veil of anonymity. And so, the horror story of my encounter with Craigslist evolved into a tale of survival, resilience, and the pursuit of justice. It served as a stark reminder that in the depths of desperation, even the most innocuous platforms can transform into breeding grounds for malevolence. Story 2. I recall the most peculiar and unsettling experience that unfolded as a result of my Craigslist ventures. It happened during my time living in a house off campus, alongside 3 fellow college roommates. Despite the tight living quarters, our camaraderie made it an enjoyable experience. My roommates had adorned the living room with an array of impressive items, making my own humble bedroom seem lackluster. Being a college freshman, I wanted to avoid any potential embarrassment when bringing a girl to my room. So, I set out to acquire some cool stuff of my own, just like my roommates. However, lacking musical talent like some of them, I had to find alternative ways to make my room stand out. Craigslist became my go-to platform, initially yielding positive results as I found a few items to make my room more inviting. But it still lacked that special touch. That's when I stumbled upon an intriguing listing, an elderly lady offering her extensive record collection. Though I didn't own a record player, the allure of acquiring these original classics was too strong to resist. I promptly contacted her son, who had posted the ad, and arranged to pick up the collection. The location was far from the bustling city. A gravel driveway led me to a cluttered front yard where a double wide trailer stood. Despite the less than ideal surroundings, I remained determined to secure the records. I parked in front of the trailer and knocked on the door. Seconds later, the son greeted me, an epitome of a stereotypical hillbilly, evident from his appearance and mannerisms. Yet, his background didn't bother me. We conversed briefly outside before he invited me in, and I cautiously stepped inside, expecting the worst. To my expectation, the interior was disheveled and carried a musty odor, but I diverted my gaze from the chaos. He led me to the living room, where his mother, the elderly lady, sat in her cherished rocking recliner, covered in layers of blankets. I settled on the sofa across from her, while the son positioned himself in the doorway. Curiosity got the better of the old lady, and she inquired about my reasons for wanting the records. I confessed my limited knowledge, but expressed my eagerness to delve into this new hobby. Intrigued, she confessed that there was an additional, undisclosed cost associated with the sale. This is where the situation took a disturbing turn. The old lady paused, exchanged a creepy smile with her son, and revealed that she had not been entirely forthcoming. She was willing to sell me the records, but it came at a different price, a price that hadn't been mentioned before. Bewilderment tinged with fear coursed through me as I noticed the son's predatory gaze fixated on me. Worse yet, he blocked the only exit from the living room. Instinctively, I rose to my feet, backing away as he made a move to restrain me and force me back onto the sofa. Amidst the old lady's continued persuasion, claiming her son's loneliness and his desire for companionship, I couldn't contain my growing dread. I shouted at them, labeling them both as crazed individuals, yet the son relentlessly approached, his imposing size and strength intimidating. Realizing I had no chance in a fair fight, I grasped for any advantage I could find. I remembered my older brother's advice to carry a pocket knife for self-defense during Craigslist encounters. Without hesitation, I flicked open the blade, knowing this was my only shot at survival. Without warning, I lunged at the son, the blade finding its mark in the side of his ribs. My hand slipped, resulting in a deep cut to my own finger, but the knife had penetrated about 2 inches into his lung. I swiftly pushed him away, both of us stunned by the sudden turn of events. I glimpsed a mixture of pain and bewilderment in his eyes, unsure of how to react. However, I couldn't afford to stick around and find out. Leaving the knife embedded in his chest, I seized the opportunity to escape through a momentary gap and sprinted past him, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't dare look back until I reached the safety of my car, hastily locking the doors behind me. At that moment, the records I had coveted became insignificant. The price they demanded was one I wasn't willing to pay, regardless of their value. The traumatic encounter left me shaken and prompted me to take a break from Craigslist. I vowed never to return to the platform again. Yet, amidst the chilling experience, there was a silver lining. The scar on my finger, a lasting reminder of that harrowing night, became a conversation starter. I would proudly showcase it, recounting the tale of how I acquired it, a testament to the dangers that lurk behind seemingly innocent online transactions. Since then, I have grown cautious and vigilant, wary of the potential risks associated with anonymous encounters. I've learned to prioritize personal safety above all else, understanding that the allure of a bargain can sometimes lead down a treacherous path. Though my venture into Craigslist ended on a chilling note, I emerged from the ordeal with valuable lessons and a newfound appreciation for the importance of trust and security. And while the scars on my finger may fade over time, the memories of that fateful encounter will forever linger in the recesses of my mind, serving as a reminder of the dangers that can hide beneath the surface of online transactions. Story 3. Craigslist, once a popular platform, has seen a decline in its usage. Nowadays, people prefer using Facebook Marketplace, which offers better safety measures and the ability to know potential buyers or sellers through their profiles. Although I haven't personally used this service, I can see the advantages it provides. However, years ago, I had a haunting experience that made me swear off in-person meetings with strangers from the internet forever. It was when I was 29 years old, and for the past couple of years, I have been using Craigslist to sell off the antiques and knickknacks I had collected since college. These items had become a cluttered obsession, and I needed to let go of them. Living alone in a close-knit condo community, I never felt unsafe, even when meeting internet strangers for transactions. But one fateful day, everything changed when I thought I was finally going to sell the biggest and most expensive item I owned, a magnificent, solid wood dresser that weighed a ton. Its beauty was unmatched, but it required significant manpower to move. I had spoken to one of the interested buyers over the phone, who assured me that he would bring along a friend with a spacious van capable of accommodating the dresser. We agreed to meet at 3 p.m, but as the clock ticked on, they never arrived. Minutes turned into hours, and it was nearly 8 p.m. when they finally knocked on my door. By that time, I was frustrated and skeptical, but they offered profuse apologies and a slew of excuses, claiming they had been held up at work. Fatigued and eager to rid myself of the dresser, I let them in despite my reservations. They seemed like contractors, so I assumed they planned to resell the dresser to a boutique store or embrace the antique lifestyle themselves. Taking them to my room where the dresser resided, they attempted to lift it but were taken aback by its weight. One of the men then requested to use the bathroom before attempting to move something so heavy. Though annoyed, I showed him the way. As we reached the bathroom door, I opened it for him, expecting him to enter. But instead, without warning, he grabbed me and forcefully dragged me inside. Shocked and disoriented, I let out a small scream as my head collided with the tub, intensifying the pain. To my horror, I saw the other man walking in behind him, and together they loomed over me. My senses were overwhelmed, and though I could see, I couldn't gather the strength or coordination to fight back or escape. Fear consumed me as I realized that my life was about to be irreversibly shattered. They rummaged through my pockets, taking away all my belongings. With zip ties, they bound my wrists and ankles, rendering me immobilized, and then sealed my mouth shut with a strip of duct tape. It felt like the end. I wished for death rather than enduring what seemed inevitable. Then, unexpectedly, they both left the bathroom, shutting the door behind them. Confusion swirled within me, mingled with a gnawing fear that they would return to throw me into their van. However, they never did. I spent hours trapped in that bathroom, immobilized and bleeding from my head, gradually recovering from the trauma. Finally, with immense effort, I managed to loosen the duct tape, using my tongue to peel it back enough to start screaming for help. A neighbor heard my desperate cries through the walls and promptly called the police. When they arrived, they discovered not only me but also my ransacked condo, stripped of every valuable possession that those men could carry away. The security camera footage at the front entrance revealed an unmarked van without a license plate. And unfortunately, there was no clear footage of the perpetrators themselves. The police informed me that the chances of apprehending them were slim, and true to their words, the culprits were never found. It has been over a decade since that horrifying night, and the trauma still lingers within me. I often contemplate whether I should be grateful that they merely stole my belongings. After all, the depths to which criminal minds can sink are unimaginable, and I'm relieved that they didn't subject me to even worse horrors. The incident left me with lasting scars, both physical and emotional. I have struggled to trust others, especially strangers, and the sense of security I once had in my community has been shattered. I became hypervigilant, constantly looking over my shoulder and second-guessing people's intentions. In the aftermath, I sought therapy to help me process the trauma and regain a semblance of normalcy. Over time, I learned coping mechanisms and gradually rebuilt my life, albeit with a newfound wariness. While the incident changed me profoundly, it also served as a cautionary tale. I share my story whenever I can, emphasizing the importance of prioritizing personal safety when engaging in online transactions or meeting strangers in person. I encourage others to exercise caution, trust their instincts, and prioritize their well-being above any material possessions. As technology continues to evolve, online platforms adopt improved safety measures, making it easier to verify identities and establish a level of trust. Nonetheless, it is crucial never to let one's guard down entirely. Vigilance and common sense remain essential in navigating the digital world. The scars from that harrowing experience serve as a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind seemingly innocent encounters. I have become more discerning and cautious in my interactions, always prioritizing personal safety above any potential gain. Reflecting on the incident, I often wonder about the individuals who targeted me. What led them down such a destructive path? What drove them to commit such acts of violence? While these questions may never be answered, I am grateful that my life was spared, and I am determined to channel my experiences into raising awareness about personal safety. Ultimately, I have learned that we cannot fully predict the minds and actions of those who choose to engage in criminal activities. However, we can take steps to protect ourselves, educate others, and cultivate a community that prioritizes safety and well-being. As I move forward, I carry the scars of that night as a reminder of my resilience and the strength that can emerge from even the darkest of experiences.